finds you well, and whether you're in your office in Wellington and Christchurch, or whether you're at working from home up in Auckland or Sydney, or in fact in your car if your reception isn't great. Before we kick in, I have asked Dave Rosenberg to say a few words to us. So Dave, as I'm sure you all know, is our Managing Director here at Westcon-Comstor New Zealand. Dave's 110% behind the need for us to help our partners maximise their profitability and partnership with AWS in the public sector. Over to you, Dave.
Morning, everybody, and there's a hint of jealousy for those who are south of the Waikato who are living out of lockdown. Certainly I'm not beaming in from my picnic, which I'm now allowed to do. So look, really to introduce this session, I'm pretty excited about the public sector and the Amazon AWS public sector part of the business. Westcon in New Zealand is the only public sector and commercial sector distributor currently today. And as with being first, we were the first to market in New Zealand around AWS as a distributor as well. We have a team which is dedicated and focused to AWS and focused to a channel strategy. So again, one of the unique parts we bring to the partnership is that, you know, we are only channel focused. So we're here to support our partners in AWS. And expertise. So we have been doing this for a long period of time, and headed with Simon and also Jason from an APAC perspective, Jason Hull. We certainly do offer expertise, billing, unique areas, and we're very open to talk to the partners about how we can help you with this new opportunity in New Zealand. And, you know, our goal is to make everyone more profitable. And you know, we're not allowed to use, if we're playing word bingo today, we can't use pandemic and we can't use changing times, but certainly it has seen an acceleration of people hosting in the cloud. And so I think it's very, very timely. So with that, I'll hand back to Simon.
So Tim is, I'm pretty sure most of you will know him as he's been an absolute key IT contributor in New Zealand over the past 30 years. Certainly his name always comes up whenever you talk about the history of Compaq and VMware. And since 2013, he's been with AWS. Very proud Wellingtonian, which means he firmly believes that you can't beat Wellington on a good day. And we won't talk about the weather today. Undeniably, Tim has shown his passion for success, both in the New Zealand tech community, but also in the solutions he's been part of. With that, Tim, welcome, and I'll hand over to you.
Hey, thanks, Simone. And kia ora, good morning, everybody. Very, very excited to be here today. As per my bio, I've been with AWS since 2013. What's not really well known is that my first meeting with a partner when I joined in 2013 was with Westcon. And probably an overshare here, and apologies if the mental picture that you get is distressing, but I'd been at AWS for 2 weeks, and I had a holiday planned, as often happens when you're changing jobs. And my holiday was in Fiji, and I was at a resort in Fiji, and I was walking out of the swimming pool in Fiji, and I saw an ex-Westcon employee, Daryl Grauman, who was at Westcon at the time, sitting by the side of the pool, tapping into a computer, into his laptop. And I said, "Hey, Daryl, what's going on?" He said, "Oh, I'm trying to get my AWS contract signed for distribution." And so that was the very first partner meeting that I had as an AWS employee. And I guess speaks to the genesis of the relationship between AWS and Westcon, not just here in New Zealand, but globally. And I think when I cast my mind back over the last 8 years, Westcon has been the exemplar from a distribution point of view for the way that they have enabled the partner community in New Zealand and latterly more internationally to become enabled on the AWS platform and to be able to, I guess, develop their business for the cloud world, which, as I'm sure you can all appreciate, is going to become a very, very different landscape for our partner community, but also for our customers here in New Zealand. So a little bit of background there. As mentioned, I've been with AWS for 8 years. I started as the first employee in New Zealand, and back in the old days in 2013, we looked after both commercial and public sector. More recently, the business has split into a commercial sales organisation and a public sector organisation. For 6.5 years, I ran the commercial business before taking over the Wellington-based public sector business at the start of 2020. And so when I took over the business, we had 5 staff. Whilst we don't publicly talk about staff numbers specifically for our business units, we have very much more than 5 staff in public sector now, and we've got a pretty effective engagement model that I'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. I guess the big news from AWS over the last couple of weeks has been the announcement of the Asia Pacific Auckland region. So we are building a region in New Zealand. It's an investment of $7.5 billion. We expect this investment to have a $10.8 billion impact on GDP in New Zealand, and the establishment of the region is expected to create 1,000 jobs. And the region is, we have announced, will open in 2024. So I wanted just to spend a minute talking about what a region is, because many of you will be familiar with the Sydney region, which is the geographically closest region to New Zealand, but may not be familiar with the construct. So a region is defined as a collection of capacity or infrastructure in a location. And every region that we have around the world, and there are currently 25 regions around the world, every region has a minimum of 3 availability zones. And availability zones are defined as a collection or a cluster of data centers. Now, these availability zones, made up of a collection or a cluster of data centers, are geographically isolated from each other. So they're able to withstand individual catastrophic events. They are on different floodplains, they are on different power grids, and they are on different networks, internet connectivity networks. So, and yet they are close enough to each other that we have very, very low latency between them. And so effectively, from a customer point of view, they appear as one facility, but customers can deploy their applications across multiple availability zones to ensure very, very high availability of those applications and just improve the resilience of their infrastructure in totality. So really important that you understand the construct of a region, because other cloud providers think about availability zones and regions very differently. And some of our competitors will build one data center and call that a region. It's really important to understand that that a region from an AWS point of view is very, very different to that. It's a very, very significant investment. And just to put it into context, so I mentioned there's 25 AWS regions around the world. We have a number of countries with multiple regions. So just to put it into context of New Zealand, there are only 18 countries around the world that have an AWS region right now. And so we're pretty privileged to be given this investment, which, as you can tell by the numbers, is very, very significant. So the launch date is 2024, and we've had a number of comments from our partner community to say it's a long time to wait for a region. What are we doing between now and then? Now you'll see coming out from my team, from the commercial team, and from Westcon, a series of ongoing campaigns and programs to ensure that our customers and our partners can continue to benefit from the AWS cloud for the next period of time through to launch, but also be well prepared and ready for the launch when it arrives in 2024. So I can't share those details with you now around the programs and the work that's going on behind the scenes, but that will be coming out in the coming weeks and months to ensure that our partner community is well ready for what's in front of us. So just changing tack a little bit and just wanted to talk about our engagement with public sector. So I mentioned that I joined the public sector team at the start of last year. And since then, we've been working really, really hard across a number of different fronts. So the first thing is we've expanded our coverage. We've grown our team quite significantly, predominantly out of Wellington, but we have recently deployed what we call a minimum deployable unit of AWS folk in Auckland, and a minimum deployable unit is an account executive and a solution architect. So we do now have coverage directly on the ground in Auckland. Not quite as effective as we would like through lockdown, but already our team up there, Nicole Lowe and Martin Pratt, are having a big impact and getting a lot of traction with public sector organisations in Auckland. So we are we're also segmenting our business. So one of the things with public sector that's a little bit different to commercial, I've found, is that there's a real collegiality globally, and governments around the world that go away and run projects and create really, really cool things that impact positively their citizens. They're really willing to share that IP. Not so likely in the commercial sector, where it's kind of unlikely that a bank would come up with a really good idea and then share it with all of the other banks. But in public sector, it's a little bit different. And so what we've done in New Zealand is we've segmented our engagement with public sector. And at the start of 2022, you'll see from us, or a little bit beforehand, because we'll share our customer lists, you'll see that we've segmented across 13 different segments. So think health, think justice and emergency services, think social services, local government, utilities, weather and research, and there's a few others as well. But with the segmentation, we bring specialization, and it means that our teams can go and have really deep and thoughtful conversations with our customers that actually help them solve really big problems based on the learnings that we've had internationally. And we've also brought in some new resources this year into the New Zealand team that will help us more broadly with that internationalization, if you like, of our business. We have a team based out of the UK called the Government Transformation Team, and their job is to aggregate all of the things that we're doing for public sector agencies around the world and share. And so earlier this year, we brought in our first GTT employee, a chap by the name of Peter Herlihy, who's based down here in Wellington. And his role is to search the world for solutions that fit into each of our 13 segments and allow us to engage more effectively, I guess, with public sector agencies and help them serve their citizens more effectively. The next thing, or the last thing I'll touch on in terms of our broader public sector engagement, is that about a month ago, we announced the release of the NZISM Conformance Pack. And hopefully you've all seen the press on that, because that is a really, really significant announcement if you engage with public sector. So the NZISM Conformance Pack allows public sector organisations, or any organisations for that matter, to deploy the Conformance Pack, and it will provide continuous monitoring and assessment of a customer's environment against 150 controls listed in the NZISM document as critical to maintain a secure environment. So the NZISM Conformance Pack is available from AWS as a download so that your customers can install it and be assured that they have continuous security conformance against those 150 controls. So I encourage you, if you haven't already looked at the conformance pack and you are active working with AWS customers both across commercial and public sector, the NZISM conformance pack is a critical tool to help your customers improve their security posture. So lastly, I just wanted to touch on what it is we are talking to our customers about. So what is the New Zealand public sector AWS team using as they go to market? And we're basically focusing on 4 key areas with our go to market for public sector. So the first is what we're calling emergency response, or emergency response and resilience, or it's really largely COVID response. So how do we help public sector organizations through a time of either lockdown or juggling lockdown, a lot of working from home going on? What are the things that we can help agencies with to ensure that they can continue their operations and continue supporting their citizens? So we've got a number of things that we are helping with. Some great examples that we use. We had one customer at the start of lockdown last year. The weekend before the Wednesday lockdown back in March last year, they were already a AWS Workspaces customer. They had about 1,200 virtual desktops running in Workspaces. The weekend before, we stood up another 2,800 desktops for them. They were able to send all of their 4,000 staff home at lockdown, and come Thursday morning, everyone was able to log in seamlessly. And you contrast that to some agencies that had to send physical hardware out into their employees' homes. Some of them were having to send out information that was highly sensitive into a non-secure environment. So just not a great response. Another example was the work we did with the Ministry of Health in terms of scaling their contact center. So they were able to stand up the COVID contact tracing contact center in just 3 days using Amazon Connect. At peak, that has scaled to over 1,700 contact center operators and done seamlessly using the cloud-based Amazon Connect. So lots of tools in our armory for supporting our customers through COVID times. I'm trying to avoid the P word, Dave. I don't want to get called out on that. The second area is where we're helping customers accelerate their adoption, typically through migrations for efficiency and carbon neutrality. So as we know, sustainability is a major priority for the government. And so there's research being released by 451 Research showing that a workload or a server or infrastructure running in an AWS data center versus running on-prem or in colo consumes 70% less energy. And so we can contribute really positively to our sustainability story by migrating customers' workloads into AWS. And so we're seeing a lot of success with organizations, large and small, that are migrating into AWS from either on-prem or co-located environments. And that's an area that we have a lot of engagement with customers on an ongoing basis. The third area is helping customers gain insights through data. And as you know, public sector has a lot of legacy platforms, a lot of data and a lot of disparate sources. And so we have the tools, again, to be able to create data lakes or aggregate disparate sources of data and provide analytics capabilities over the top of that to help public sector agencies make better decisions effectively, better decisions that are made on data. And so that, again, is another key go-to-market area for us. And we're having a lot of success engaging with public sector around helping them get insights through data. The last area that we're talking to agencies about in terms of our go-to-market is digital citizenship. So we kind of know with a high degree of certainty that cloud is going to be a transformation agent for public sector, and that public sector want to be able to engage digitally with citizens. So what does that mean from a digital citizenship point of view? One is building the appropriate trust and identity frameworks. And so if you think about our engagement across digital citizenship, that's a key area that we are focusing on, is how do we provide the digital identity and trust frameworks that support agencies engaging digitally with their customers, the citizens of New Zealand. So they're the 4 areas that we are focusing on. Again, having more people in the team has enabled us to go deeper and broader into the public sector, and we expect that broadening of our coverage will continue, especially as we get closer to the launch of the Asia Pacific Auckland region in Auckland. So Simone, a bit of a quick download there of things that are going on. Clearly there is a lot going on in our business right now. We're hugely appreciative of the support from Westcon and your partner community, which is of course our partner community. I might pause there and just see if there's any questions in the chat, anything anybody would like to know.
I have got a couple of questions here, but certainly everyone, if you want to just send through some questions on the chat, I'm happy to ask those questions of Tim. So 2024, it sounds like it's a long way away. It's probably not when you talk about building the sort of data center centers that you need to build. Have you actually selected sites? Do we know where this is actually happening in Auckland?
Well, yes, we have selected sites, but unfortunately I'm not allowed to talk about either where or what or any.
So you're through the process then, which is the main thing.
Yeah, look, we're definitely on the flight plan, and there is a global infrastructure project team that have been engaged for some time, but globally we don't disclose the location of our facilities, and that is part of our security posture.
Understandably. No, that's great. So you've talked about 1,000 jobs. That's a lot of jobs.
Yeah, look, so we calculate the economic impact based on a globally recognized formula that was produced by Brainiac from Harvard. We plug into that formula data from Statistics New Zealand using the input-output method, and that provides us with the expected economic impact. And the economic impact has been calculated at $10.8 billion of GDP and 1,000 jobs. Now, those jobs are coming from all different industries. So they are construction, they are the data center supply chain, there's local providers, and there's AWS direct jobs. So the people that we will employ to run operations in our facilities, but also those that we add to our team to enable effective coverage of the New Zealand marketplace. What it doesn't speak to, and I'm not going to go into detail on this, I'll let you all draw your own conclusions, but what it does potentially lead to is a much deeper and broader ecosystem in New Zealand. So you think about the number of partners that have sprung up in recent times that we call born in the cloud partners. So these born in the cloud partners didn't exist, and now they do, and now they're focused on promoting AWS into their customers. We expect, it's my expectation, based on my experiences, that there will be a lot more jobs created outside of those that are listed in the economic impact study. And that the New Zealand IT community will embrace the AWS region, and that over time we'll see many jobs created. The other thing I'd say about the impact of a region, which we haven't talked a lot about through our press release. I guess you could clearly see that the things that we can comment publicly about are fairly restricted from our PR organisation. But the other thing that I would say is that this is a multi-generational investment. This is not an investment that's spanning the next 5 years. This is forever in New Zealand. And so you think about what could happen in terms of the IT community in New Zealand. And it was 4 years ago, I stood on stage at the Transformation Day in Auckland and talked about this innate culture in New Zealand of pioneering innovation and invention. New Zealand, I mean, it's called number 8 wire mentality. It's called lots of different things. But you think about the fact that New Zealand has a fundamentally different way of thinking about problem solving.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, okay, if you take that innate culture and you add a world-class technology platform, then we're going to be able to do some incredible things. I mean, think what Xero did to the double entry accounting industry.
Yeah.
I'm personally just so excited about what this means, not just for the current generation of IT professionals, but for generations to come. I think that this could fundamentally change the fabric of society in New Zealand for the better.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the innovation piece you're talking about there. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. That's
Simon, oh, sorry. Finish off.
I was just saying that's the innovation. So are you seeing, Tim, the growth of some of the tool sets, you know, like when you talk about data lakes earlier, are you seeing more growth in tool sets around that, which really could totally sky's the limit from an innovation perspective? Is that what you're expecting from this?
So the utilization of the services, that AWS provide, will, I think, continue to accelerate.
Yeah.
The other thing that those of you that have been around AWS for a while will know is that we have an incredible pace of innovation. So last year we released 2,757 features, services, or updates. If you do the math on that, that's 1 every 3 hours. So our business at AWS is creating new things every 3 hours. Now, 90% of what we produce as our new services, features, or updates is as a direct result of customer feedback. And that's really, really powerful because we don't have, well, we do have a bunch of really smart people in back rooms, but it's not them that are inventing or trying to interpret what customers want. We are taking direct feedback from customers as to how to improve their experience on our platform, and we are prioritizing a development pipeline based on that. So I'm really confident that not only the over 200 services that we have today, but the new services that we are constantly iterating on will provide just an incredible platform for New Zealand.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Tim, maybe if I can just add something, and sorry for interrupting just before, but I know you can't say much about your approach around the data centers and what you're doing in New Zealand, and obviously we can't because we're under dual NDA, but there's two things I think I can say which has been really pleasant to see. One you mentioned, which was around the fact of the multi-dimensional approach and how it's certainly focused on growth, and it's almost like an elastic approach from what I've seen. And two, the support around the AWS offering in New Zealand has for the partner community, and that's not only from being able to sell it, but it's also supporting some of the local data centers. So those two things I think have been a great initiative, and also differentiates Amazon from some of the other players in the market like Microsoft, etc. So I'm pretty excited by that. I haven't crossed any boundaries there.
Oh, well, you crossed a boundary that I wouldn't go over, but that's fine. We tend to obsess over our customers, not worry too much about what our competitors are doing. Yeah, look, the one thing maybe if I could leave you with is partners are absolutely central to our growth in New Zealand. We are not going to scale our team to have the coverage nationally, and the direction from me to my team is that I want a partner embedded in every single one of our customers. There's no question about that. If anybody on the call ever hears differently, I'd love to hear as soon as you possibly can, because we are absolutely committed to our partner channel, and we'll do whatever it takes to ensure that our partner channel can continue to deliver great outcomes for our customers.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tim.